The Oppo Reno series is popular for their design, cameras and AI features. So besides being able to spit out water from the speakers, yep, let's find out if this is just another mid-range smartphone, because there are some things about it that makes you ask, but why? Now, I was planning to skip the unboxing part because unboxing smartphones these days are usually boring. But when it comes to Chinese brands though, they usually pack everything that you need. So in this box, there's the 80-watt charging brick, a Type A to Type C cable, and a black phone case as well. So design and build quality wise, it has an aluminum alloy frame, which was cool because the last generation Oppo Reno 12 Pro had a plastic frame. It also has a glass back and a glass front. Now, if you choose the plum purple color variant, you get that butterfly kind of effect and design. But I got this in this graphite grey instead, and no, there are no butterflies on my stomach either. Yeah. But there's a weird sort of a downgrade because the screen glass is using a Corning Gorilla Glass 7i compared to Victus 2 last year. Now, a lot of mid-range smartphones are using this particular Gorilla Glass 7i, which I don't have a problem with that since thankfully I do not have butterfingers. But if last year's Reno 12 Pro had Victus 2, why not just stick to that? Probably to save some cost. But if you really dive into the differences, the Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 focuses more on the fall or any similar drop damages. So it's way more easiest for Victus 2 to get scratched on. However, this Gorilla Glass 7i focuses equally on the drop and the scratch protection, which makes this a smarter choice for a day-to-day user. But yeah, but why? Now, speaking of diving deep, this phone is also rated with IP66, 68 and 69, and more on that later in this video. So this year's model screen is a 6.83 inches compared to 6.7 inches on the Oppo Reno 12 Pro. Both the 12 Pro and the 13 Pro has the same AMOLED display together with 1200 nits of peak brightness and 120 Hz refresh rate. Now in the settings, you can switch between 60 and 120 Hz, or you can use the auto select to have a great balance of both to help to save battery, which I'll go into in a minute. But one thing that every techie is noticing is the missing PWM dimming. Now, in case you're not familiar, PWM dimming helps to avoid those typical display flickering, which could cause some strain to your eyes, especially in low light conditions. Now, the reason why I am emphasizing this because last year's generation Oppo Reno 12 Pro had this, but this time around they did not include that. So, but why? Now, while they did remove some useful features, they didn't remove one big thing that is probably keeping people away from Oppo, which is the bloatwares. Yes, you can find these apps and ads everywhere in the UI. Now, from a monetary standpoint, I can probably understand that. But I do wish that they do something like what Samsung does by neatly packing their native apps in a folder. But of course, Samsung apps does not have ads all around their UI because these ads honestly can sometimes make the phone feel like a budget smartphone. Now, if you're somehow able to get over this mess, good job, because there are two things which Oppo has done very brilliantly. A, it has the latest Android 15 with ColorOS 15, but this only has 4 years of OS updates with 5 years of security updates. But yes, ColorOS is still a very good software or a skin for Android where it still flows like water across the UI, where honestly there's no lag from a day-to-day basis, where this shares the almost same UI and experience that I got on the Oppo Find X8 series, which I really loved. There's the similar features like the O+ Connect app as well, which helps to share data between iPhones and this particular Reno 13 Pro with just one click. There's also the dynamic island style of a feature called Aqua Dynamics, and even AI Live Photo, which records at 1.5 seconds before taking the shot. Now, this is of course similar to iPhone's live photos, which I've grown to appreciate more on ColorOS 15. Now, speaking of AI, here are some cool features that you can really enhance your whole experience with your photo taking with the help of AI Enhancer, which detects the scene and adjusts the colors and contrast and the overall lighting. There's also the Reimagine AI, which helps to generate images just by having some prompts. Then Oppo has also bundled the similar and a very reliable AI features from the Find X8 series, such as the AI Eraser, the AI Reflection Remover to remove reflection from images, and Oppo has also integrated AI everywhere around the UI too. When typing a message in different tones, you can even type an angry message to your boss, but you feel like you don't want to retype that, you can ask AI to do that too. You can even translate web pages to your favorite languages and even summarize them. But there's more, because you can even get AI to even speak the screen out for you while staying in the background as well. However, how does all of this perform, especially with the gaming performance with this particular MediaTek chipset? Now, besides having 12GB of RAM, it comes with a MediaTek Dimensity 8350 compared to last year's 7300 chipset. Now, this is a mid-range chipset which handles all daily tasks like a hot knife on butter. Yep, it's absolutely smooth, my friends. But if you do push it to the max, it will kinda tell you by not really performing as best to tell you that, you know, I'm a mid-range processor in a very smartphone way. Now, I do agree that this is not a game-changing improvement compared to last year, but on Genshin Impact, it performed well at these settings that you see on the screen over here. Then as for comfort, because the camera module is not as big as the Oppo Find X8 Pro, this was really nice to hold and game for long periods. So the image processing time when taking photos, especially in a different environment, has been really reduced. So it is faster this time around. While both have the same camera hardware of a 50 megapixel main camera, 50 megapixel telephoto camera, and an 8 megapixel ultra-wide lens, together with a 50 megapixel front camera. But this Reno 13 Pro has a slightly larger aperture for the telephoto lens, while it has a better 85mm focal length. But the aperture value has risen to 2.8 instead of 2.0. Yeah, but why? But all in all, based on my in-depth camera tests, I will divide it to what's really good and what's not so good. The good, all the real lenses during the day, whether or not it's the ultra-wide lenses or the main lenses, the quality was very flagship level, including the night photos as well. Now, during the day, the telephoto zoom was really good up to 242mm or 10 times zoom. Now, you can go further to zoom up to 120 times, but I wouldn't recommend that. Now, even the main lenses at night did perform very well, but I would say to limit the telephoto lens up to only 85mm, which is up to 3.5 times zoom instead. Now, there are 3 focal lengths for the rear portrait mode photos, and they were really amazing, as seen in these photos both for objects and humans as well. And even the nighttime portrait photos for objects was also really good too. And even the selfie photos had amazing dynamic range with great skin tones too, with a nice subject to background blur, and it was the same for the nighttime selfies as well. And this particular selfie mode has 2 focal lengths to choose from due to its higher resolution for the front camera. Then the 4K video quality on the main lens was really good too, so was the front video cameras, and yes, it does record up to 4K for the front cameras too, where the night front videos was also really good, but only use it at the default 1x zoom, because you can zoom up to 2 times, which I don't really recommend that. Then the not so good was the night rear portrait mode for humans, because it was decent when it comes to the subject to background blur. But as you change the focal lengths, when you zoom in further on this portrait mode, the color shift is quite apparent. Then the ultra-wide video quality can only record up to 1080p. For God's sakes, it's 2025 Oppo. Then as for the main video stabilization, it looks a little wobbly too, and the overall nighttime videos were not the best. But what's more interesting is the fact that this phone also has an underwater mode in the camera app under the More section, which allows exactly what the name says. Now, this particular mode will not only disable touch to prevent any mistouches underwater, where it just lets you to use the volume buttons to shoot photos and videos underwater. Now, that's the reason why it has all of the IP ratings mentioned earlier. And once you're done, just press and hold the power button and the speaker spits out water. And here's a vlogging test using the front camera for this particular situation, like here in the studio where it is raining outside, so here goes nothing. And here's a vlogging test using the front camera for this particular situation, like here in the studio where it is raining outside, so here goes nothing. This is an audio test for the front camera. I am using on a 4K video camera. Quality looks good, skin tone looks decent, and it looks very bright because of the lights over here. But of course, since this is an audio recording test, test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. Now, if you guys are enjoying this video so far, a nice big thumbs up would be very much appreciated, as this kind of in-depth reviews are not very easy to do, I'm sure you guys know. And we are also on the way towards 200,000 subscribers. I don't know why I have problems saying subscribers, but subscribers, so thank you very much in advance, guys. Now, to process all of these cool features, Oppo had to improve on the battery life as well. Now, this has a huge 5800 milliamps of battery with 80 watt of wired charging together with 50 watt of wireless charging. Now, this gets charged from 0 to 100% at about 50 minutes or so via the 80 watt charger, which is healthy. Now, this 5800 milliamps of battery might not seem like it's a very huge jump from last year's 5000 milliamps, but optimization takes it to the next level with about 7 hours plus of screen on time, and all of this while keeping the phone under 200 grams. So, but why? Now, don't get me wrong, there are improvements all around, but as mentioned, when you look at giants like Samsung, Vivo, or even Google phones, they've made such a dent in the consumer's mind, so this phone needs to give you that extra wow factor. But the only saving grace on this is the fact that the phone is priced decently at 2,999 ringgit, which is about 666 USD. Ooh, the devil's number. So you'll need to ask yourself, do you have the extra money to buy the Oppo Find X8 Pro instead? Otherwise, get this. Or you can check out my in-depth review of that phone over here.